Howdy, everyone. Welcome to another new episode of the LOWBAT Podcast. On a Casey-less episode 20, Tyler and I are joined by my longtime friend and freelance sportswriter, Ricky LaBlue. We get into a lot of topics. We educate Tyler about the sport of bowling, discuss the evolution of the sports writing industry, and talk about the coolest things Ricky got to experience at his time as a writer for Virginia Tech. If you're a sports fan, you'll enjoy this behind-the-scenes look at the journalism world of sports. Enjoy our conversation with Ricky and hit the subscribe button to be the first to hear new episodes.
You are now listening to the LOWBAT Podcast,
a weekly show highlighting members of our local creative community and featuring topical conversations with members of the LOWBAT production team. We're your hosts, Casey House
and Fabian Castaneda. Through our own experiences as musicians, visual artists, and business owners, we saw an opportunity to provide a platform for people just like us to deep dive into what it's like to pursue a lifestyle outside of the norm.
Without further ado, welcome to the LOWBAT Podcast.
Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of the LOWBAT Podcast. We do not have Casey today. Casey is out doing cool stuff on a different coast.
Right, just gallivanting.
I mean,
having the time of his life.
He can see the Pacific Ocean. I've never done that in my life, so
It's pretty sick. It's always cold, I've learned.
and rainy over in the Seattle land.
Is that
area.
where he is?
He's
Yeah.
in Seattle.
Also, gallivanting, very underrated word.
Extremely underrated.
I respect that that you incorporated that into the conversation.
It's a
Thank
nice
you.
word. Today we have a cool guest. We have a really good pal of mine. We've known each other for a very long time. Mr. Ricky LaBlue. How are you today?
I'm excellent.
Good.
How long has it been? Because you and I started in bowling youth league together when I was probably like 13.
12, 13.
So
this is like-
we're like year 13ish.
Yeah.
It
yeah.
doesn't surprise me that bowling has youth leagues now that I've heard it, but like, what?
That's a whole thing.
So it's something that I'm sure Fabian agrees with, but the bowling industry does such a horrid job at promoting bowling. You don't see it anywhere.
I feel like,
Nowhere.
okay, well,
As a matter of
I
fact,
do,
the
but
only
it's
time you
always
see
in a weird,
bowling
like, movie
ads
setting.
are when bowling's on TV.
yeah.
That is very true.
Or the Big Lebowski. I think those are the only two bowling.
Yeah, it's almost like
things that I know.
bowling. Like when it is advertised, it's almost kind of like as a joke in a way.
Yeah, which is what the new what is it? The new CBS series that's
For
supposed to be
Smallwood?
based on Tom Smallwood.
Yeah,
It's literally billed as like a comedy.
it's a comedy.
Yeah, and it's a bunch of bumbling idiots who wear all the stereotypical bowling clothing, and
It's gonna be interesting.
I'm not looking forward to it.
So like, what is, so like, in both of your eyes, because you're deep in the bowling scene, what would a superstar bowler like look like to you? Like, who would be like what's like the image of like the LeBron James of bowling?
Well, right now it's Jason Belmonte.
Jason Belmonte is the most winningest bowler in the current era.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
He also was responsible for the innovation of the game, throwing it with two hands. And the bowling media's obsession with him being Australian, him using two hands, and him hooking the ever-loving hell out of the bowling ball, he's just a rock star.
Yes.
Okay. Like this is sick. I don't hear anything about bowling.
Yeah. Well, and that again, that's because the bowling industry does such a poor job of advertising themselves. And
But-
it's super frustrating for people like Fabian and I who were, especially someone like Fabian who's going to bowl, professional regionals and stuff like that. Like he's on a different level.
That is
And-
true. You are gone like every other weekend,
And
every 2 weeks.
the fact that
like making money off of
the
this.
fact that the powers that be aren't trying to expand the game is excruciatingly frustrating.
Or like I feel like they're trying, but they're just failing every time.
I think that they're doing enough to say that they're trying.
There we go.
I don't think that there's been a serious
Call 'em
effort
out.
to be like, how in the hell can we connect with these kids who are spending their Saturdays playing soccer, or their Saturdays playing basketball, or in the fall playing football or baseball? Like, there's no effort to connect with those kids.
Yeah.
If your family doesn't go to the bowling alley,
you're not going to the bowling
you
alley.
probably don't even know that youth leagues exist.
Mhm.
You have no idea.
Yeah, I feel like a majority of most youth leagues are full of bowlers kids.
Yep. I mean, that's what I was.
Exactly, same. I was in a bowling alley.
All of our friend group.
I was in a bowling alley at like 2 weeks old.
Yeah, all of our friends, their parents were bowlers at one point in time.
This is such a sick slice of the sports world I never knew existed, and I've never just asked you about, and I really regret that now. What goes on and
I'm kind of surprised that this hasn't come up before. All you needed was another bowler.
It's just the thing I've accepted. I was just like, oh, Fabian's really good at bowling. Okay, and then he's just like, yeah, I'm training. Then he's like, yeah, I got to go train for this tournament. I'm like, oh, okay, that's kind of cool. Yeah. Then he comes back and his wallet's just full of money that he won. And I'm like, wait, what is happening?
Hey, man. When you're good, you're good.
You're good, you're good. I was really about to say that.
When you're good, you're good.
How hard are you hustling these people?
I mean, it's not hustling. These are organized tournaments.
And also, I do want to point out, and I'm not just trying to kiss Fabian's ass here, but
you can if you want.
Anyway, we'll talk about that later. It's not like he's like a super flashy guy either. Like if you actually go and watch him bowl, Fabian's game is very like basic and like compact. He's not super flashy. He doesn't throw it all that hard, but he's really, really, really consistent. And the technical part of his game is really, really good. So Fabian may not have a lot of the physical gifts that some people that him and I see in bowling leagues or tournaments may have, but he still kicks their ass. Yeah, and that's because he actually puts the effort in.
It's really cool. Like the sport of bowling is something that you can do at any part in your life. At any point in your life, you can pick up a bowling ball. For like people that play basketball, baseball, football, after 18, if you're not playing in college, like the dream's done. So, people can start bowling young. They can start bowling when they're old. You can be a big person bowling. You can be a little guy like me bowling. And it's a sport for everyone.
One of the best bowlers that's ever bowled is like 5'6", like 160 pounds, and just does not look physically imposing whatsoever. And he's one of the best bowlers of all time, Norm Duke. And then you have someone like Wes Malott, who's like 6'6",
he's a giant,
240, 250, massive, got the full beer gut going. And he had a run in like 6 or 8 years ago where he won like 6 tournaments in a row, and he was the best bowler in the world. It's so crazy the width and the breadth of types of people that are involved in bowling.
I will say right now, for me, and I think most people that are going to end up listening to this or watch this, you have said more names professional bowlers now in the first
than they've ever
3 minutes than I think they even knew existed. Yeah. This shit is wild. This is actually really fascinating to me. This is a whole, like I said, this is a whole slice of like the sports world I did not know existed.
And again, it goes back to the bowling industry, whether it be Bolero, who now is, they're the largest bowling corporation in the world in terms of owning bowling centers. They also happen to own the PBA, which is the Professional Bowling Association. And that partnership is supposed to help the sport, but I'm not sure that it is. It's probably a bit too early to tell.
Yeah, it's only been like a year and a half, maybe 2 years.
And with the pandemic and everything, and the centers, being shut for 6 months.
Some of them up to 8 months.
Yeah, 4 to 6 months. I'm hoping that we'll see some changes in terms of promotional stuff, but we just haven't seen it yet.
I have noticed. I mean, because me and Ricky do work in bowling pro shops. Where we're drilling bowling balls and selling shoes and things like that. So people have their own gear. A large influx of new bowlers coming in, getting their own stuff. I really feel like coming out of the pandemic, it might help the game because bowling is one of the first things that you could actually do once things started opening up. And about most centers opened up by the fall of 2020.
In this area, they were open
in July.
They were still open in like late June, July, actually.
I guess it's easy to spread people apart. Just go like 3 lanes.
And that's what they were doing. Yeah. So nobody bowled on the lane next to somebody.
Yeah, so they went every other lane.
1 lane gap.
Yeah.
You were limited to, 4 or 6 people. You had to stay, like taped out a box on the carpet. You had to stay in your box. You had to wear a mask the entire time. bowling alleys did their best to try and mitigate all that stuff. And I think for the most part, it was pretty effective.
Yeah, it's pretty safe. I mean, I feel like there was no like large like quantities of cases.
Now, that
as a
said,
result.
the one time that I came into contact with someone who was positive was at a bowling alley, oddly enough. Didn't get it, though, so we were lucky.
Hey,
but
shout-outs.
yeah, so I don't know, but that's because Fabian and I are in bowling centers all the time, so it was bound to happen. That was the only place I was going in a social setting. I wasn't going to bars. I might go to a restaurant every now and then, but obviously we're not next to anybody that I don't know. So the bowling alley was the only social place that I was at. So I was bound to happen there.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. But so that's a lot of bowling talk to start the episode. For those that listen that may not have caught, I bowl. So
breaking news.
Yeah, exactly. And me and Rick have bowled together for a very long time. But I wanted to talk about something specific for you, and that's your career in sports writing and journalism in itself. Because Ricky, you're a graduate of Virginia Tech.
Mm-hmm.
And you've done a bunch of stuff with media and communications. You've written for Tech Sideline.
Mm-hmm.
You've done other sports ventures, like I know you interned for the Pulaski Yankees.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You have your own sports related podcast, the Hokie Hangover.
Yep.
You've done a lot. I just kind of wanted to see if you can touch on where your love for sports in general started, and when you decided to pursue that in your education.
It definitely started with my dad. Sports was like the main avenue of bonding for him and I. Whether it was us going to the bowling alley, us playing golf, him coaching me in baseball, watching football games together, like all of those types of things were crucial to our relationship. So sports were just embedded in my life. Like my life revolved around, do the Orioles play today? Do the Pistons play today? Like all this stuff. And obviously Virginia Tech football was a big part of that, being that they were the best team in the state. They probably still are the best team in the state. Sorry, UVA.
Which is not saying too much though still.
You're right. The level of football in the state is absolutely fallen down dramatically. But
Call them out.
Yeah. But I always wanted to be a lawyer, actually.
Wow.
And then I guess it was probably like my junior year in high school when I became the sports editor of the paper at Lansdowne. That's when I kind of decided that, maybe this is something I could do. Everyone kept telling me that my writing was good and I should stick with it. So I was like, okay, we'll try it. And I did a year at TCC before going to Tech. And I think that was what kind of solidified it for me, because TCC was so damn miserable. I hated it. It was so bad. Dude, Lansdowne U, baby. That's exactly what it was.
Lansdowne University.
I knew way too many people from my high school days that were there, and it felt like I was in 13th grade, and it was just the worst.
Oh, man.
And I was so I was so miserable. I was like, I gotta get out of here. I need to go to Tech, because I got in as a senior.
Yeah.
I just couldn't afford it.
Same.
Fortunately, that situation changed after my first year, and I was able to go. And as soon as I got there, I knew this is what I want to do. I have such an opportunity being around a expansive, well-covered athletics program at Virginia Tech, where people always want to read about the teams. So I have a chance to learn. And once I got past some health issues my sophomore year, Fabian, you remember those?
Oh, yeah.
I was able to finally start doing that and actually getting to go cover games and be in the press box and be around these coaches and asking Frank Beamer a question for the first time, which was just an awe-inspiring experience given how much of a legend he is in sports. Being able to do that just cemented it. And even though I'm not doing it full time now, all of those skills that I learned as a beat writer and, doing in-depth interviews, creating a podcast, doing video stuff, all those skills have translated over still into what I do now full time. So even though I'm not in sports full time anymore, I still do it, in my own time as a hobby. But all of those skills are still relevant. And even though I'm not in that field anymore per se for full time, I still don't regret getting that degree and getting that experience.
That's cool. That's awesome.
Like, because like the sports media industry is so changing anyway.
Oh yeah,
at the moment it's contracting at an ever increasing rate.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, remember when The Athletic got started? How excited you and I were when Ken Rosenthal went there, and we were like, "Oh my God, The Athletic's going to be the place for good writing, not clickbait garbage."
So what is was The Athletic? Is it still?
It's still around.
It's still a thing. It's still a thing. But The Athletic is on super shaky financial ground. It may be bought by the New York Times. That's in talks. So, and actually, The Athletic has never turned a profit. They've been around now for what, like 6 years. They've never turned a profit.
I feel like that's the
only
case for a lot of like print media or just any sort of like up and coming news organization. Though it's just like making money is so difficult.
They got so much initial fundraising that's how they've been living, and that's how they hired all of these writers. Like one of my good friends when I was covering Virginia Tech with Andy Bitter, he was the writer for the Roanoke Times, which is like the 3rd biggest paper in the state.
Okay.
He had worked there for 10 plus years. He was the Roanoke Times' football or Virginia Tech coverage, specifically for football. He left for The Athletic because they gave him a really good opportunity. And Andy kind of saw the writing on the wall with the Roanoke Times, which tried to lay off their Virginia Tech beat writer like a month and a half ago, and they ended up going back on that because so many people called and complained.
Oh, wow.
Like they literally laid this man off, Mike Niziolik, who's a really good guy. They literally laid him off for a week and then came back and were like, "Oh, we're changing our mind. Mike is now working with us again."
Because they caught so much shit.
Like, yeah, because people are like, how in the hell are you not going to cover Virginia Tech? And Roanoke is 45 minutes away. It's the only paper in the state that really has a dedicated full-time writer to them, which is nuts. Because if you think about 10 years ago, the Pilot had a writer that covered Virginia Tech. Richmond had a writer that covered Virginia Tech. Roanoke had a writer. Lynchburg, Bristol. There was another paper, I think in South Boston, that covered Virginia Tech. Like, there were like 6 or 7 full-time writers that covered one team. That wasn't even a professional team.
Right.
And now there's barely enough money in the industry for 1 or 2.
Can I ask a really like dumb, uneducated question?
It's probably not dumb.
How, okay. So how are there, you named like what, 5, 6 cities just in Virginia that aren't even all that far from each other, that all have a dedicated Virginia Tech writer?
Well, they did.
Well, okay, but like still, how much can you say about one? Like, how do you have differing opinions? Like, how would you handle that?
Well,
as like a sports
number
writer?
one, there was the readership was a lot higher, so there was an appetite for different perspectives and different writing, because every writer covers a team a little differently. Some people are a bit more data focused. Some people are a bit more like human interest focused. Some people just mail it in and suck. Like, it's just that is what it is. So, and also like having different people from different backgrounds brings different questions, and sometimes those questions can actually give you more insight than you would have known otherwise. So when I was covering Virginia Tech football, if I didn't have people like Andy Bitter in the room, or Mike Barber, who's with the Richmond Times-Dispatch, or Norm Wood, who was with the Daily Press, if I didn't have those guys in the room, the information that I got out of that press conference would be much, much less than it was. And I think I'd like to think the same goes for them with my presence being there. I'd like to think that the questions that I brought to the table, they wouldn't have asked either.
Right. Definitely.
And having all of those different opinions with people who think about the team differently, and they think that they think they know what the reader's priority is, so they're going to come to the table with their own questions, and then between all of our questioning, we really get a full sense of what's going on.
Right, because you're limited in like the amount of questions you can ask, so you got to try to.
Yeah, it didn't used to be that way. Unfortunately, I got into the industry right about when Virginia Tech started shutting things down a lot in terms of access. So when I was a student, we actually got to speak with like 6 players a week in an informal setting. So not at a podium, not at a lectern, not in front of cameras. We were recording. It was on the record, but it wasn't at like the lights setting type deal, you know?
Where it's like, this is I got to put on a face for like.
Yeah. So like,
Virginia Tech right
these
now.
guys were just out of practice. They're sweaty. They're uncomfortable, but they're standing in the corner of the room. You know, there's not a ton of cameras on them, so they open up a bit more.
Yeah.
Well, around the time that I graduated and became full-time, that changed. The people in charge of Virginia Tech's public relations, which, again, they even changed the name of the department, which explains the direction that they're going. They went from the sports information department to strategic communications. Like that tells you everything you need to know about what the department's goal was at that point. So every single interview was then at a podium. All of them were where they're all being live streamed. We're all standing at least 8 to 10 feet away from the coach or player. It felt very canned, very planned, and very boring. And that is also leading to the lack of interest amongst readers. Not just the overall trend decline in terms of reading print and digital journalism, but you just weren't getting anything interesting anymore. Because they would put up the same, 5 or 6 players all season long for the most part. You never got to speak to assistants. It was very rarely that it did happen. So you're only speaking to the head coach. And Justin Fuente, who is the head coach at Virginia Tech for now, is very cautious about what he says to the media. I never really kind of figured out where that came from, if he had something in the past that happened. But he's very guarded when it came to when the cameras were on and the recorders were on.
Do you feel like most college coaches, especially college coaches, because essentially it's a team full of, 6 foot to 7 foot children that smack each other for an hour at a time. Like, don't you think it's probably better for him to be a bit more guarded? Just, make sure he doesn't say anything, that not just, to not, put smudge on his name, Virginia Tech's name, but not put any of his players in a weird position. To, try to teach his players to, not put themselves in a weird position just from what they say to you or to anyone else in the press?
It's kind of a catch-22 in my opinion, because if you're not exposed to that early on and you do go to the pros, you're not going to know how to handle it. It's way different once you get to the pros.
They are animals once you get to there.
Because a lot of the situations are you're crowded by 10 or 15 people. You've got 4 TV stations with cameras on you, and they're just peppering questions, peppering them. And if you haven't experienced that before, it's daunting. And I think while yes, you do lessen the risk of a player saying something stupid, which can still happen from time to time. And not that they say anything really bad, but something that a coach would wish that they didn't say.
Yeah.
But you rob those kids of that emotional development of handling tough questions, or even just handling jerks. Like, because some people in the media sometimes we're jerks, we're assholes, and learning how to handle that is crucial, I think, to being an athlete. Because not everybody's going to treat you with respect. Not everybody is going to be honest and upfront with you. And if you haven't been exposed to that early on, you're not going to know how to handle it and how to react when you're 23 and you're making $2 million a year.
Right. So I was thinking, because the sport that I watch the most is baseball.
Yep.
And
it's because the Dodgers are good.
Dodgers are very good.
We won't talk about my team.
But I do pay attention a lot of times to press conferences and things like that, and how players react, and just how they can kind of poise themselves for things like that. With baseball, they play every day, essentially. So they have so many opportunities to see the press. For someone like you that covered football, where a majority of things were like once a week, I would say.
Yeah, like very rarely do you get to speak to someone more than once a week. Now, the head coach is different,
Of course, yeah.
but in terms of the players, you'll usually get them once a week.
Okay. So was it tough being able to really pull content if the opportunities were kind of scarce?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so a normal week would be we would interview the head coach on Monday. And then on Tuesday, we would interview like 5 or 6 players, maybe an assistant if we got lucky that week. So you then have to pull content from one day and make it last an entire week.
Oh, no.
And that can be kind of tough.
That sounds really tough.
Especially when all of the reporters are asking, we all have access to the same quotes. So all of our stuff sounds the same. It's so much harder to have your own style and your own angle if you're using the same quotes. And you didn't get that when we had kind of the informal breakout session when I was a student, where they would literally open up the room, they would set 5 or 6 of the kids next to the wall, they would spread them out, and you got like 25, 30 minutes. Ask whoever the heck is in there, whatever the hell you want to ask them. And if you ask him something stupid, it'll get back to the guy who's running the show, and then he'll get mad at you. So you better not do it, right?
Yeah.
But having those kind of breakout sessions, you got your own unique quotes. And also, if you had a really good line of questioning that day, no other reporter may get it because he may not be there at the same time. So you may have exclusive quotes that are really, really good, and you can use those. But you can't do that anymore.
I feel like it's almost like they're sterilizing the whole process.
Absolutely. That's a great word for it. They are sterilizing it to hell. And it's so boring. It's so bland. Where it's gotten to the point now where you can just not even attend the damn press conference and watch it on Facebook Live, and you get the same stuff. So they're taking away that incentive of actually sending a writer to the press conference.
So I know that your experience is, a lot of it, most of it is with Virginia Tech.
Yeah.
So I don't know, does this like translate to like schools across the country?
Yes.
Or like, is this okay? This is
It got to the point, I think it was 2 seasons ago, where LSU was basically like cutting off all press coverage that wasn't the head coach.
Oh,
and that's happened at other schools across the country. And it kind of goes back to this change in business where businesses, athletic teams, nonprofits, they're all now trying to tell their own story rather than have a media outlet tell it for them. That's happening everywhere. Any industry, doesn't matter. It's happening in like normal business. It's happening in sports. It's happening in music. It's happening in charitable organizations everywhere. They want to control the messaging. That's basic PR. It used to be where you would rely on the media outlet near you to give you good coverage because that's where everyone was going to read. But as those publications have less and less readership or less viewers, if it's TV, you now have to create your own brand, your own message, your own medium. And that's exactly what athletic programs and even professional teams are doing. So they're not just hiring people that are in charge of keeping statistics or coming up with story ideas to pitch to writers who cover the team. They're now hiring storytellers. They're now hiring creative content people. They're now hiring someone who can get an exclusive interview with a player, package that up, and now it's an exclusive team piece of content that no other media outlet's going to have. So they are trying to get to the point where why in the hell would you even go to the media outlet?
You can get everything
you want. You can get everything you want here. But there's a catch. They're obviously not going to put anything out negative about their program.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So if you have a program that's got some shady stuff going on underneath, the team of people that's telling that team's story and creating, the line of messaging is going to ignore that because that's literally the antithesis of what they're supposed to be doing. So now you're missing that investigative part of journalism. You're missing the scrutiny that media provided. Now, sometimes they're too much, right? They hound the hell out of you. They're nitpicking. They're trying to cause problems. But more often than not, reporters and journalists are not trying to do that. They're trying to do their job, which is tell the truth. And not being able to ask all those questions, not being able to interview all those people one-on-one, you're losing that. And I think that that's bad for the sport. I think it's bad for the fans. I think it's bad for the kids who aren't being exposed to adult situations when they're young adults.
So do you find, so with, I guess the word we're using now is sterile. So if media attention or media opportunities are being sterilized by the team, have you ever found that players themselves will kind of break out to say, this is what I think. Quote this is me talking.
It's pretty rare. It's more common in the pros.
Yeah.
Because when you're a professional, you're a lot harder to get rid of and you're a lot harder to silence, right? If you're a college player, you're 20 years old and you say something that the coach doesn't want you to say, he'll just bench your ass for a half and you won't play. Or, you'll get it in practice, right?
Yeah.
But if you are, I don't know, let's say you're Mike Trout, right? Not that Trout would ever do this. But let's say you're Mike Trout and you just start talking trash about the Angels. And you're like, this organization's garbage. I'm the best player in the world. We can't win any games. I need some pitching. Front office is terrible.
He probably thinks all those things, though.
Yeah. But he doesn't say them because he's a good teammate.
Right.
But the Angels ain't going to do shit to Mike Trout, right? Like, they're going to let him go because he's Mike Trout.
He's selling all the tickets.
They pay him $80,000 million a year.
All right, facts.
and he is the centerpiece of not just the organization, but the sport, right? So when you're making money, and even if you're not that guy, you're not the guy in the spotlight, but you're being paid professionally, you have a bit more leeway as to what you can get away with. But if you're just a college kid, 20 years old,
not even getting paid to do this stuff.
Yeah, those coaches control your future. So you have to make sure that you basically listen to them and follow their orders.
I have I have my own opinion of this. How do you feel about like the NCAA and just the concept of college players being paid or just being able to generate any sort of revenue off of?
Well, I like the idea of amateur athletics.
Okay.
I think that colleges and the NCAA not allowing players to make money off of their name and their image and their likeness is bogus.
Especially because they can make money off of their likeness by selling a jersey.
Like, I have no problem. I'm not a big fan of paying players, like actually giving them paychecks, because that kind of goes against what college athletics is designed to be. But I fully support players being able to make money off their own name. So there's no reason that like someone like Trevor Lawrence, who's the number one pick in this year's NFL draft, and we've basically known he was going to be the number one pick for the last 3 years because he was a stud as a freshman. The fact that he wasn't allowed to sign his endorsement deal with whoever the hell he wanted to sign an endorsement deal with is just crap. And on the flip side of that, I don't think that money should be redistributed. There are some people who are saying, well, let's say Trevor Lawrence is making, just for numbers' sake, $5 million a year in endorsements. Well, the school is going to basically tax that. And the school is going to take a percentage of that money and then give it to other student athletes. No. That's dumb.
Yeah.
Because you know who's earning that endorsement? That player. There's no reason that a really good football player or a really good basketball player who is earning this money by being really good at what he does should have to forfeit that money.
Yeah, any amount of money.
Because a player chose a sport that doesn't have as much eyes. That's your problem.
Thing.
Well, none of it's set yet because the NCAA is still trying to figure out the name, image, likeness legislation, and now the federal government's getting involved, which we know how great that is, right? That's going to be super efficient. So they're still trying to figure out kind of like how it's going to work. But if they come up with a system where schools can basically tax guys for their endorsement money, it's crap. It's robbery. It's what it is. It's theft.
I almost thought, well, why wouldn't they just go to a different school? But it's the NCAA. And that's everywhere.
Well, see, that's the problem is that if there isn't a national standard, then you're going to have
schools that tax more or less, right?
Schools that may tax a lot, schools that may tax a little, schools that may tax none. But if you're a program like Alabama in football, or you're a program like UCLA or Kentucky in basketball or Duke in basketball, you can get away with doing a bit more because you're Duke.
Premier schools.
You're Bama.
Yeah.
You're going to automatically draw more interest and more endorsements. Whereas if you are a basketball player at Missouri State, right? Like Missouri State ain't going to be able to get away with screwing a player out of his money because they'll just transfer. So, and especially now that transferring is becoming easier and easier.
So easy, yeah.
Because now they're going to be able to do the one-time transfer. So they're going to be able to transfer one time without penalty and play right away. Whereas now, if you transfer the same level, you have to sit out a year. Unless you get a waiver. And then that whole waiver process is bogus because it's all subjective and they're giving waivers to guys who don't need them.
See, I feel like I've learned more about just the very business of sports in the last however long we've been talking.
And that's what sucks is that college athletics was like, I love that college football and college basketball is on TV all the time. And I love that I'm able to watch it, but I hate how much of a just a money grab operation it's become. Like, I don't think that that enough of the people in charge, like the power brokers, the people that know what they're doing, the big wigs, I don't think enough of them have the good of the sport on their mind. Which kind of goes to what they're doing now with the college football playoff expansion and how they're talking about making it 12 teams.
Yeah.
Which is just a monstrosity.
Because it was 4, right?
Yeah. And you had the first and second seed just kicking the third and fourth seed's ass for the last 2 years. I mean, it wasn't even close. So now we're going to add in another 8 teams.
It's just another way to fill stadiums.
That's all it is.
Yes, it is.
It's big content for TV because people are going to watch because people watch college football. It's a way to make more money in revenue in like tickets and stuff like that. It'll create more endorsements because it's more opportunities for guys to put up big numbers. So it's all a money grab. It's all it is. And I'm worried that college athletics is becoming nothing but a money grab, specifically football and basketball. And if that's going to be the case, where like we're gonna trash the good of the sport and the integrity of the sport in terms of not having teams with 3 or 4 losses play for a national title in football, which is just absolutely ludicrous, then we damn sure better make that the players get a cut of that.
Yeah. There's so much money.
At least their own endorsements and stuff, because there's so much money to be made.
Exactly, because like I mean, you went to Tech, Lane Stadium. It gets absolutely packed.
It is. I'm biased, but it is probably a top 5 college football atmosphere in the country. It's so sick,
and that's every game.
Yes,
they could suck. They do suck sometimes.
Yeah, well, but
and it's still full.
It's nuts, right? So like even when they were bad, like under the last few years of Frank, and even the last couple years, like they'll only sell like 45,000 tickets. That place is still loud.
Exactly.
Right? 45,000 is
out of
is
how
a
many
little
seats?
66,000.
That's still a metric fuck ton of people to me.
And the crazy thing about Lane Stadium is it's only so like Lane Stadium is actually small when you compare it to places like Bama, Michigan, Ohio State.
These straight up football schools.
I believe like Florida. Well, they're the big state schools, right?
Yeah.
So they have a bigger endowment. They can build bigger stadiums. They have a larger enrollment too. Like Michigan's got like 50,000+ students. Tech wants to get to that point, which God, Blacksburg can't handle it. But that's a different discussion.
They'll have to take over Christiansburg.
Oh my, yeah, they will. So like you have Lane Stadium at 66,000, which isn't really that big, but the stadium is just absolutely lit. It is the best. It is the best sporting atmosphere I've ever been to. It's so lit. Enter Sandman is just terrific. That place gets loud as hell. The way that they built the stadium, the noise stays in the stadium, and it's an open air stadium. The noise just stays there, and it all goes to the field. It's so loud.
Yeah, I still need to experience one of those.
Well,
that sounds cool.
Now that they're going to have 100% capacity this fall, which thank God, I'm planning on getting a weekend where I go to a game. So if you're interested, we can go.
I like that. We'll do that.
Dude, and see, this is one of the things that sucked about my time as a student, right? Because I spent 2 years covering tech in the press box.
So you weren't out there.
So I only got to be a quote unquote fan, right, for like a handful of games.
Man, that I just thought about that.
Yeah.
That kind of stinks.
Yeah,
but like it's cool, but it kind of stinks.
It is. So like being in the press box for 2015 Ohio State when it was literally like there was not a single empty seat in the stadium. There were people, just trying to get in that day. There were people sitting in the aisles because it was so packed. I was in the press box for that. Which is wild because there was like 50 people in the press box, and there's never that many in the press box.
What a press box is? That's what
where is it?
Where is it?
So it's different for every stadium. So lane stadiums, the large, or I guess it's the west side of the stadium, the west stands. That's where they have the, kind of their large building where they have the TV booths, private boxes, stuff like that.
Okay.
The press box is on the south side in the west building, all the way in the corner.
And these are the most specific directions I was not expecting.
Yeah.
That's so sick though.
Yeah, but what's crazy about Lane too is, and it's a lot of stadiums are like this, but they built it so where there's never a bad seat in Lane. You can see the entire field unobstructed from every seat in the stadium. You can even see it every seat in the press box. Like the Lane Stadium is just such a great venue, and I pray to God that place is around in 100 years. Like that place is so great. I love it.
See, this is how I know you're a writer. You make this place sound like it's the fucking Roman Colosseum.
Dude,
like,
that's what it feels like. Like walking in that place when it's empty, like on the field. It's just like you're standing in this mammoth hall of history. And as a tech fan, that's what it feels like to me.
Yeah, because you watch games of that on TV.
I've been watching tech games since I was a kid, and seeing every week 66,000 people in the stands. Hell, I remember watching games before the expansions were done in the the south end zone, where it was only like 50,000. And that place was still loud. Like that place still registers on the Richter scale. You know that, right?
Yeah, I've heard about that.
Wait, what?
Yeah. Their Lane Stadium has registered on the Richter scale. Yeah, see, that is an old picture right there, right? So that building goes from the end of the stands all the way to the side. It's absolutely massive. But yeah, they've had probably like 5 or 6 occasions in the last 10 to 15 years where when they do Enter Sandman, or like if a big play happens, it registers on the Richter scale. It registers as an earthquake.
That's literally lit.
So fucking lit.
Yeah.
Holy shit, that is so cool.
Yeah, no, it's not the only. I gotta be fair. It's not the only stadium that's happened at, but I'm pretty sure it's happened more at Lane Stadium than any other stadium.
I think one of the big reasons that this podcast even started was just the idea that, like, all right, most of us are all from Virginia Beach, right?
Yeah.
We know that like really amazing people do amazing things here, and we never hear about it. This is another amazing thing. State of Virginia. I had no fucking clue that happened, but like it gets so loud somewhere that there is an earthquake. And the like, earth shakes when Virginia Tech gets hyped. That's so cool.
There's a famous quote from ESPN's Chris Fowler, who was doing a pregame coverage of it, and he says the earth literally shakes here, and Virginia Tech uses that in like all of their marketing.
I was like
promos.
That's a shirt.
Yeah,
that's a shirt.
Absolutely.
Definitely. I mean, a shirt.
Lee Corso. You know who Lee Corso is, right? He was like kind of the granddaddy of ESPN's football coverage. Former football coach. He's getting old now, so they're starting to like fade him out. But back in the mid 2000s, he had a quote where he said, and I'm paraphrasing it. It's a disgrace that I can't repeat it word for word, but he's like, I don't know what if something like I don't know what a Hokie is, but I know God is one of them. And that ended up on promo material for the next decade. Yeah, it is. It literally is a shirt. So like
shirt material right there.
But that's one of the things that sucks about Virginia that I hate. That's how it is. this state is so different depending on where you're at,
Yeah.
right? Like we're basically 3 states,
Oh yeah.
right?
There's
So you have Nova, which, right? I can't stand Nova.
Why not?
It's too many damn people.
I mean, DC is literally right there. You got
exactly.
That's
the
exactly
issue.
that's my point.
No,
Like
DC's so cool.
Like if
What?
I was in charge of things, I would basically corner off. Like I would take Maryland, give them DC, and then give them Nova, and just make that a state because that's more similar. And then I would cordon off like Central and Southwest Virginia because that's like its own state. And then you cordon off Richmond and Hampton Roads and Tidewater. Like
Okay.
that's how nuts Virginia is in the sense that it's so different depending on where you're at. Like Virginia Beach and Roanoke, 2 completely different areas. Like the culture's different, the dialect's different. It's so nuts.
I
But
can't
then you end up
say.
in Blacksburg, right? And it's this cauldron of
everyone.
of everything.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that makes Blacksburg so cool is because you have all those people from Southwest Virginia that still go there and live there. You have all the people from Northern Virginia. You have all the people from out here. You have all the people from Richmond. You have all the people from South Central Virginia where nobody even thinks anyone's at, right? And you have all this mix of people. And
Now,
it's
is that
just-
strictly
it's
because of
amazing.
tech?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Tech is like an oasis.
If tech wasn't there, Blacksburg would be like 30,000 people tops.
Just as a city.
It's a
Yeah.
little town.
Oh, wow.
But when you add in the students, the teachers, Blacksburg's at like 80, which is crazy. Like when the kids go home, it's so different.
It's like a ghost town, probably.
It is. I spent what did I spend?
On
I
so
think I spent 3 or 4 summers there.
the one time I went in Bold State with y'all, that was during the off season because it was June-ish.
Yep. Yeah. So
So-
yeah, that's where all the kids are going. Well, most of them.
Most of them. I think
yeah,
there's some.
just about all.
Yeah, I kind of realized that.
And it's
like,
in
after a little bit.
Christiansburg.
Yeah,
Yeah, because the bowling alley in that area is in Christiansburg.
yeah. But I mean, I stayed with you near the campus.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, there's like no one here. Like, what is
Mhm.
this?
Yeah.
But that made sense.
Yeah, but no, Blacksburg is absolutely amazing. And if I wasn't living here and I had to pick somewhere, I'd go back to Blacksburg, without a doubt.
We're 100%.
Yep,
Wow.
Nice. So,
no hesitation. I love that place.
so
And if you haven't been, for all those that are listening, you need to go.
I agree.
Go during the fall. The leaves, like the foliage is terrific. The atmosphere in Blacksburg in football season is just unmatched.
Nice.
Go to Cabo Fish Taco too.
Cabo Fish.
Cabo Fish Taco is lit.
Hashtag not a sponsor.
Not a sponsor.
Yes.
Not an ad. Well,
This is not a paid advertisement. I am not a paid attorney spokesperson.
we'll go ahead and link their website in the about section. So you went over your affinity for Lane Stadium and the things you got to do there, but you also have to travel as
Yep.
part as a writer for tech. What are some cool places you got a chance to see, or some cool opportunities that you got to be a part of just because you're able to travel for the team?
Notre Dame was
Oh, wow.
awesome. Like seeing Touchdown Jesus, perfect. Do you know what Touchdown Jesus is?
This is so hype. No. Oh
So,
my
like,
God. This is so cool.
So you know Notre Dame's like a Christian university.
Yeah.
So there is a church not that far from the stadium. And if you are sitting in the right part of the stadium, you can see the church. And there's a large like painted glass of Jesus. So he's Touchdown Jesus. And it's so cool. Like Notre Dame's a great, the people are great too.
Fuck with it.
Now, if you go in the wintertime, it's cold as shit. So like I went there, it was snowing and then it was raining and then it was snowing again.
It's like the middle of Pennsylvania, isn't it?
No.
No. What is it?
Indiana.
Indiana. Okay. I don't know what school I was thinking
But like
of,
the
but-
wind blows like way too much there. It was like 35 mile an hour winds, snowy, rainy, and they played football game there. But it's a great place. Place that sucks, Pittsburgh. Can't stand Pittsburgh.
Dude.
Touchdown Jesus.
There's touchdown Jesus.
There is Touchdown Jesus.
so elegant.
Bless.
Bless up touchdown Jesus.
Yeah, Pittsburgh sucks.
Just
Now
as a place.
Heinz Field, great.
Of course, but that's not what we're talking about.
But
here.
getting to Heinz Field is a disaster. Like just driving into Pittsburgh, parking, and then walking to the stadium, crap.
I
I was so disappointed.
been able to go through Pittsburgh one time on tour with my band, and during the day we went down by the river to go walk by the stadiums.
Mm-hmm.
But like the only way to do that was to Uber. because you couldn't park.
Yeah.
So we just parked our stuff like literally 15 minutes away in some suburb area and just Ubered into the city.
Now, my favorite road trip, Charlotte. It's short, but I love Charlotte, the city. Charlotte is beautiful. The people are great. It's not so dense that you can't like walk without hitting someone like you're in New York. But there's so much stuff to do in Charlotte. The weather's great. The downtown scene in Charlotte is awesome. It's just a great place to be. And I got to go to Charlotte a lot because Tech played a bowl game there. ACC kickoff, which is like ACC's preseason media conference and whatever, was at Charlotte every year. Charlotte's just a great place to go.
Never been. You make it sound amazing.
I've heard a lot of good things about Charlotte, like how it's really on the come up.
If I wasn't living in here or Blacksburg, I'd go to
Charlotte.
That's your third. There you go.
And then I went to Miami, and I was really disappointed because I didn't get a lot of time to actually go into Miami. So I
where
didn't.
did you end up?
Well, so my hotel was more like Southwest Miami, and then Miami Stadium is in Miami Gardens, which is north of like Miami proper.
Okay.
So I spent most of my time kind of like on the outskirts of Miami and in Miami Gardens, which is where Hard Rock is, Hard Rock Stadium, which is also a really cool stadium. It's more like a soccer style stadium because they have the canopy. What's that?
Well, that was a multi-use stadium for a very long time, so it's like
that was
shaped.
What was it called then? It was where the Marlins played. The Hurricanes played there, but now the Marlins have their own stadium, obviously.
Yeah. So it's just a football soccer only complex now.
But it's a really beautiful stadium because they have the whole canopy set up on the above the stands.
Pro Player Stadium, it used to be called, I think.
I'm not sure.
I think so.
Hard Rock ruining everything with their sponsorship.
Yeah. Hey, they gave them their money.
Yeah. So mine was pretty cool. Orlando was cool. Didn't get to go to Universal, which was disappointing.
You need to. Universal lit.
I've heard. Where else did we get to go? Charlottesville is okay. Charlottesville, the town's cool, but when you graduate from Tech, you just have this.
You can't like it.
This natural contempt for the town.
It's like I'm only here
when
because
they're
I have to
all
be.
actually really cool people. Like I've never met a bad person in Charlottesville. The one place I really disappointed I never got to go was Morgantown, which is where West Virginia is, because Tech and West Virginia had to take a break from their rivalry for like a decade because it got out of hand.
Oh my God.
Now, I did get to cover their game at FedEx Field, which was awesome, and I got to see two West Virginia fans fight each other, which was great. I also saw two Miami fans fight each other at Miami.
A lot more hype.
And a funny story about that one. So the police officer came down, right? It was breaking. It's like, all right, that's enough. Like, we're done. And this one woman was just not letting go. So the cop was like, all right, you're out of here. So the cop like basically picked this woman up, right? And she's wailing on him. I mean, wailing on him, right? He did one little whack like that and just knocked her out.
I remember seeing that. Someone got to video that. She
just put her out.
She just went to like sandbag mode.
I was like, dude, you asked for it. I don't want to hear it. Like, you were beating on that man's back. And you know what? You had too much to drink. You're done.
Good point.
But no, so like watching fans fight each other is kind of funny.
It's a football fan, especially college football. It's even more so for the kids.
Nothing compares to soccer. I haven't been able to witness like European soccer in person. Obviously, I've never been. I really want to go to a European soccer match.
So I think we have someone that could say something about this.
Yeah.
Ethan, how crazy are soccer fans?
Literally stab each other in the stands. I'll say it. Fuck that.
They light fires and like set off explosions and stuff like that.
There's like an entire issue in Europe with like soccer fan ultras and things like that, and them like destroying player buses and all kinds of stuff.
Well, hell, did you guys watch the U.S.-Mexico game?
I wasn't watching it, but you were giving me play-by-play.
That's right. Yeah, we were on PlayStation at that time. Dude, they were throwing just trash and like filled water bottles on the field when the U.S. scored
and hitting players.
Right.
And they hit Gio Reyna in the face and almost knocked him out.
Yeah, he went straight down.
Yeah, it was ugly, and that's here.
That was in Denver.
Yeah, that was in Denver.
They played that game in
Denver. Like those were fans from Mexico. And the fans from Europe are on a different level. Like
football hooliganism is a wild thing to like look up and like see how deep it gets, especially in like the Premier League.
But what's crazy is like their fanaticism is like on a different level than American sports. Like our sports atmospheres can get pretty awesome, but like pregame soccer matches, like watching the fans do their rituals and stuff, like all together I don't think there's anything in the States that matches it.
It's heavily it almost feels heavily like a nationalized thing. It's like the Pledge of Allegiance to them.
Yeah.
Like,
but soccer is so important over there.
It's cultural down there.
Yeah.
Like over in those parts.
Which is kind of like how football has become in the States. Like that's why you have all of these, which we don't really have at the NFL level, which kind of sucks. But especially in college, like the Enter Sandman, or I'm trying to think of some of the other cool. Clemson has a really cool entrance, but like anything where you can bring the whole stadium together in unison at one point is just a great atmosphere.
I think my favorite one that I know of is every home game at West Virginia, they play Country Road. Just because I just like that one song. Also,
you just had to trigger me.
Also, shout outs to West Virginia for loving a song that is about Virginia.
Yeah, right.
Virginia.
Yeah,
it's okay. I mean, you can keep the song. That's fine.
Yeah,
that's what
you can have it, but it's not about West Virginia.
For you. Beautiful state though. Dude, keep that up. It's immaculate.
Driving on is it 64 where there's a tolls at where it's like 3 tolls back to back to back?
I wouldn't doubt it. Yeah.
Yeah, I hate driving to West Virginia. That place sucks.
What?
Yes.
Nah, we went camping there and we wanted to go see Mothman. So we started basically where we started was basically right across the border.
Was this a camping trip where y'all were supposed to record a pod?
No. This was a different one. I wasn't part of this camping trip, unfortunately.
And we have to drive clear across the state to, I forget the town's name, but like it's right on the Ohio River, and like you look across it and there's Ohio. And which was wild to think about, but we're driving across it and I've never seen so much natural beauty in like one place. Like legitimately. We just passed so many like tucked in like river towns and like just beautiful waterfalls. The mountain air is crisp as fuck. It's like McDonald's Sprite crisp. Like that shit is wild.
Dude, you go to McDonald's and get Sprite?
I mean, not anymore, but like,
I was like, you got to get Coke if you go to McDonald's.
McDonald's Sprite do be hitting though.
McDonald's Coke hits.
I mean, yeah, actually I had a McDonald's Coke today and it hit pretty good.
It's because they get like a different version.
They do. They get a special version.
Yes, which is why it tastes so damn good.
Yeah, it still has cocaine in it. That's
no wonder I like that shit. Right?
I remember driving through West Virginia, and I just remember there were so many like bridges because there were so many valleys.
Yeah,
that was kind of crazy. One of the first long trips I've done, I drove to Indianapolis for a bowling tournament, like the youth. Like so, I was like 18. And that was like the longest trip I've ever like driven part of, and I drove back from there. I was terrified.
It gets like that.
You couldn't see the bottom of the valley.
It gets like that out in Southwest Virginia too. Like if you're on 77 going south to Charlotte, it can get pretty nuts out there in terms of like you have to go over Afton or not Afton Mountain. Which mountain is it? I can't remember. But there's a mountain like right at the border that you have to go over, and it's so damn high. You can see so much of North Carolina like from the top.
That sounds so cool.
Yeah, I like being like close to the water. And like I love Virginia Beach, but there's just stuff out there, like even in the state, that you just don't get if you don't leave the area, at least for a little bit.
Definitely.
Like you just don't get it. Like even Richmond has stuff there that you just don't get here in the beach.
Yeah, it's crazy how like this state has like two like just contrasting things. We have
the mountains and the beach.
Yeah, like completely opposite, and you can just drive 3 hours and you get
it's like Chile.
Other. Yes, exactly.
Except we're way wider. Except from like one end of the state to the other is like 6.5 hours.
Yeah, right about.
Because the last hour is all switchbacks.
Honestly, yeah. Like, because when
58 is the worst.
We oftentimes go, camping in areas that are in either Shenandoah or in Southwest. Our last camping trip was in Southwest Virginia. And so many switchbacks.
Yeah.
Like just driving to get to the campsite, like, I remember the map said, it was like 3 miles from the destination, but it like was like 14 minutes.
Yeah.
Because there's 25 miles an hour up switchbacks the whole way just to get to it.
A funny story about that. So one year UVA played at Tech and their equipment truck tried to take a back way to get out because 81 was such a mess. they got stuck.
Yeah.
And it went all over social media. And they lost that game, of course. So not only did they lose, but their equipment truck is literally stuck on a switchback in the middle of BFE, right? Amazing. Just perfect. Like chef's kiss.
Absolutely.
Doesn't get any better than that. Anytime I can get a dig in on UVA, I'm here for it.
But that must have been a really good like day of writing for you. Like here we see the incompetence
Just
of UVA.
dude, blast
yet
it on
again.
Twitter. Blast it on Twitter. I mean, hey, get better.
Dude, nothing. I wouldn't expect anything else from a Tech fan.
Yes.
But yeah.
Actually, hold on.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have just one question for you because you spoke about bowling before.
Yeah.
As being super under, not represented.
Yeah.
And so I was wondering if there's any other sport that you feel just does not get the representation, the coverage, whatever you feel that it deserves or should have.
Well, bowling doesn't get the representation that they should get because they suck at it. Like it's known what the sport's fault. So I don't want to like make it seem like bowling's the victim. Like bowling has their own problems. Like they're the victim of their own demise, in my opinion. I think lacrosse can be kind of fun to watch.
It's intense.
Yeah.
Remember our buddy Damien that like almost lost his leg?
Yeah.
Was that because of lacrosse?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. I mean, like
It's pretty disgusting.
lacrosse is pretty wild. I don't know. Like, I think golf is a really good sport. I think everyone should learn how to play golf.
Golf is fun.
Like,
I still think it's fun to watch.
Learning golf not only teaches you so much about like your body, but it teaches you so much about interacting with others. Because you are the judge of yourself.
Okay.
And you are like, so like in other sports, right? Like, you know, you don't, like if you commit a foul or a penalty or whatever, you don't call it out. You just keep on going. Nobody saw that shit. I'm going to keep going. Right? But in golf, if you do a bad drop or you ground your club in the bunker, you call yourself out on it. It's so different.
It's like that with
It's
tennis.
so different. Yeah.
Where like
yeah.
where like if someone else like you're trusting each other to keep each other accountable.
Yeah. Whereas you don't have that in like football or baseball or hockey. God, certainly not in hockey.
No, not at all.
I feel like at hockey though, just kind of I feel like it cuts to the ultimate end goal of like of just like, all right, if you're that mad, just fight.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I mean, like I respect that they let them do it, like at least for a few seconds, because once you get it out of your system, you're usually good.
You're good. Yeah.
You're usually
Go sit in your
okay.
box for 2 minutes.
Like you
think
remember
about
that?
it.
You remember that John Boy breakdown of Mark Canna and Shohei Ohtani?
Oh yeah.
Where Ohtani threw in on him a couple times, and Canna and the bench is cleared, right? And Canna was jawing at him, and then everything was fine for the remainder of the game. Like sometimes you have to let the players handle it. Like sometimes, like like in football, like if you have guys that are pushing and shoving on the field, sometimes you need to let them get it out. Go ahead, be stupid. I'm gonna throw the flag, but I'm gonna let you be stupid for a few seconds. All right, then we're gonna pull you out. All right, now you got out of your system now. Okay, good.
Yeah, let's go.
It's like that Terry Collins scene where like the ump just let him like.
Oh, he just ate it. The ump just ate it.
The
whole
ump just
time.
let him blow a gasket for like 30 seconds nonstop.
I think he said, "Are you done, Terry?"
Yeah, and he's like, "Are you get it out? You're all good now." Like sometimes you just gotta let people blow up, and then just let them go. All right, we're good now. We can go play.
I like it. Sports, man. Aggression.
Yes, there's so much aggression that people just don't realize. Like
Yeah.
there's emotion you just can't ignore.
Absolutely.
I think my answer, just because I know it gets a lot of disrespect, strictly because women play it, and it's supposedly not as exciting as the all male version of the league, but the WNBA. And I think the thing that gets me about it, and I didn't know that Kobe Bryant like had so much like vested interest in it, like sponsorship, promoting it. I didn't know that was a thing, so I started looking into it. Two things I learned: one, anyone that goes on the WNBA for not being as exciting, I need you to understand that every one of these women will break your fucking ankles.
Oh yeah,
Like with no mercy, dude.
These are the best of the best in the world.
Like that shit will not be fair. Also, did not know this until I started looking into it. So many of them are wickedly beautiful, and it's ridiculous. Like,
So,
how the fuck?
It's funny you mention that. I covered Virginia Tech women's basketball for 2 seasons when I was working for Tech Sideline. yes on your second one. That's all I'll say.
All right, facts.
But one of the things I observed is I felt like, at least in college women's basketball, the game was more technical. So like they played more sets and they like followed the game plan more, whereas the men's game felt more of just like who can out athlete the other,
Who can get their highlight reel going?
like whereas in the women's game it felt more of like a team, because you had like the only way to get open consistently was to run those sets, and you had to run them to perfection, and you had to make adjustments, and you had to play strategically, whereas in the men's side oftentimes you give it to the dominant player and you let him go because he's going to go get buckets. He's a certified bucket getter.
Okay.
But in the women's side, you don't have that as much. You only have a few of those women around.
And
So
boy,
the
do you
women-
know when you have those.
Yeah,
though.
you do, because they're literally unstoppable. So the women's game, in some ways, was more enjoyable to watch at Tech because I could actually see the strategy playing out every possession, and I could see the chess match going on. Where you see that sometimes in men's college basketball, but not all the time.
That's an interesting point, and that makes sense because sometimes, like statistically, a lot of women's games, whether WNBA or women's basketball, scores aren't as high. It's because they're running those sets.
Yeah,
they're taking their time.
It
They're
takes
waiting
a
for
bit
an opening.
longer. The athleticism isn't like quite there at the men's level, obviously, but yeah, running all of those sets, running those plays, taking the time to make sure you're getting the best shot. You don't see that either in college or the NBA, really. The NBA has gone off the rails in terms of
NBA. It's almost
how the
turned into
game is
the All-Star game every game.
It's hard for me to watch. Like it's bad enough my Pistons suck, right? My Pistons are terrible.
So are your Orioles?
You're loyal though.
Yeah,
But that's
like
what matters. Though.
Yes. So like, yeah, Orioles suck too. Go ahead. You want to add on any more?
Let's see.
Tech football isn't very good
Tech
right
football
now.
is not good. The Washington football team, not good.
So I'm in a position where like all of my sports teams stink. So it is what it is.
Can't relate.
Same.
Okay, shut up. I don't want to hear it from you. All right, your team's got like a $600 million payroll.
I'm just saying, all the sports teams that I like are doing good right now. All right, the Dodgers are the best team in the MLB, arguably. The Ravens are in the playoffs every year. The Clippers are in the playoffs right now. They just came back.
You're a Clippers fan?
How the hell did you become a Clippers fan?
I just the last few years of watching.
Do you have a PG 13% jersey yet?
No, I don't.
You don't have a Pandemic P jersey?
Pandemic P. There we go. No, I
PG
just
13% is still the favorite one that I've seen.
playoff P.
He is not playoff P.
Not
baby.
right now.
Nope. Him and Kawhi are getting exposed.
Dude. Kawhi, although he put the team on his back those last two games.
Donovan Mitchell, man. That just fries me out even more because we picked right before Donovan Mitchell went, and we took Luke effing Kennard.
Who?
I mean, he's on your team. He was on my team, but then
if you think
we
about
traded his ass.
think about where they ended up being.
It's just so frustrating. Like Donovan Mitchell was clearly had the higher ceiling in that draft, and we took the guy who had the higher floor, and we paid for it because Donovan Mitchell is a top 10 player in the league.
Rip. Anyway,
Story of a Pistons fan.
You'll make these decisions soon enough.
Shit. No, I won't.
we'll play.
I'll just keep criticizing people who make stupid decisions.
We'll play this the little Tiny's violin right now.
Yes.
That's that. Whenever we talk about
Dude,
Rick's
any team
teams-
that drafts Darko, like you just have to like accept that your team just can't draft. Just can't do it. Literally 4 Hall of Famers in the top 5, and we got the one who wasn't.
I mean, some teams got a bust. It's unfortunate.
It always happens to be us.
All right, so before we get out of here, I do want to mention one thing. If you want to talk about it, earlier you mentioned that you're not doing sports full time right now. It's more like a little side gig, hobby.
Yeah.
Talk about it with your friends and stuff like that.
Mhm.
You got a cool new job.
Yeah, started a few weeks ago as the media and communications coordinator for Virginia Beach Emergency Medical Services, or EMS. It's been really fun so far. It's been really eye-opening. I had some family friends who have been in EMS throughout my life, so I kind of knew a little bit about it, but I'm learning so much. Like, so many people don't know that 80% of EMS people are volunteers. So there's a good ass chance that, like, let's say you call 911 right now, the ambulance that's going to come save your ass is staffed by volunteers. They are not getting paid. They are coming out and they are, risking their own livelihoods, giving their time for nothing. And not enough people know that. And it's pretty rare too. The volunteer system isn't as popular as it used to be, but Virginia Beach still runs on it. So being in an opportunity to tell their stories and give them the recognition that they deserve is a fun opportunity for me, because ultimately I'm a storyteller. That's what I do. I like to tell stories, and it just so happens usually to be related to sports. But this is a new avenue. And these people, just because they don't dunk and they don't, get buckets, doesn't mean that they don't have really cool and interesting stories. And getting a chance to do that is going to be a lot of fun. I'm working on some things now. I've only been there a few weeks, but I'm really looking forward to growing the brand of EMS and reminding everybody that most of these people are volunteers, and the work that they do is absolutely invaluable. The city could not operate without it.
Well, definitely good that they have you on their side to tell that story. Tyler, do you have anything else you wanted to mention?
No, other than it was really cool to meet you. I've never spoken with just a journalist in general, someone whose like whole job is to like tell a story.
Yeah, this has been an awesome pod, like, because a lot of people don't, talk about that kind of stuff, right? Like, because we're meant and we're told that you're not supposed to be the story. You tell the story, but you're not the story. And not that I want to be the story, but I think a lot of journalists have really interesting stories to tell, because we experience so much.
Definitely.
That the average person doesn't experience. And while it is our job to tell other people's stories, sometimes we have to tell our own. And I'm not sure that enough people do that.
Nice. Well, one last question before we get off. You getting online later?
Yes,
awesome.
Absolutely. I still have not grinded out the May monthly awards. For those that are listening, this is MLB The Show Talk. I don't know if you guys talk about that regularly on the pod.
Never. Literally never.
I listened to a couple episodes to prepare for this, and I didn't hear it, so I wasn't sure. But yes, I'll be online.
Sick.
I'll be online frying out that I can't get 8 total bases with Marcus Semien.
Awesome. Well,
any moment with 8 total bases is just the worst.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, listening to us banter about stuff that's important and stuff that's not important. Thank you, Ricky, for being on.
Thank you for having me. It was a blast.
Yeah, awesome, guys. Peace.